Simple Tunes.
Hey, what's up? My name's Devin, and this is going to be a quick video on how to set up an effect send or throw within a track. So we're not going to be using these send functions. We're going to build it within an audio effect track, which I find is a little more useful in a live situation so that you can keep things contained to one track. We'll talk about that a little later, but it's going to sound something like this. So I said this, it played in the effect. Still there, trailing away while I sing or speak beneath it. One more time. Hey! And I can talk. Same thing goes for verb. You can get a nice luscious verb pad going, maybe set up some harmonies. Let's see, what does an E sound like? Okay. Trails away while I sing or speak beneath it. Okay, so this is part of my band's vocal effects package. We have a video on that if you're curious about it. It's got some fun stuff in there. I'm going to delete that and we're going to start fresh. So you drag in an audio effect track, you expand it, and you create a chain. So in this chain, we're going to pass the dry signal. In some cases, you might want to build an effect where you don't have any dry signal and it's pure wet. I'll make a different video about that. But in this case, this is just for adding an effect on top of a dry signal. So let's create another chain, call it wet. It's going to get twice as loud here for a second. Hey, we'll go ahead and mute this. Wet. Now, instead of muting it there, although, no, that actually won't work. Never mind. Instead of muting it there, we're going to mute it with a utility plugin. And let's talk about why. So let's work on a reverb first. My favorite reverb here is called Forest Floor. I don't know why I like it so much, but it's just a go-to for me. We'll crank the time a little bit. What does this sound like? It sounds like this. Now, if I mute this, we're muting everything. We don't want that, right? But if I use this utility and use the mute feature on the utility, well, then I can say something and then mute the input signal. And that's what we're going for, right? Maybe this is a bit long on the decay time there. Let's crank the size and get a nice high quality. So the mute feature is an option if you're using a button, and it would be as simple as mapping it to a macro, mute, and then MIDI mapping this to a button on your keyboard. And this would have to be a toggle on-off. So right now my button is not illuminated, and now it's illuminated, meaning it's muted. If you wanted it to behave the opposite, you could just right-click here and click Invert Range. Now, when the button is off, the mute is off, and when the button is on, so now it's more like when the button is off, the effect is off. When the button is illuminated, the effect is on. Right, you get what I'm saying. Okay, so maybe you want to have a little more control, and the mute button isn't quite what you want. So in that case, we map the gain. Now you want to be careful here because we're going to map it to macro 1, but make sure you map it to something that's not mapped to a MIDI parameter, because if it's mapped to a fader that's all the way up, it will immediately go to 35 dB, which is loud. And I've done that a few times and it's been very embarrassing. So map it first, make sure that there's no MIDI mapping here, then edit your macro map and set the max to 0. Depending on the effect, sometimes you can do 2 or 3 dB if the effect itself attenuates the volume. But we'll just leave it at 0 for now. And now I can turn this up. Oh, I have this muted for safety. Now, if I turn this up, we start to hear the effect. And when I turn it down, I can create a reverb pad and keep speaking underneath it. All right, it could be really long. We could even freeze it. So check it out. As soon as I turn this up, ha! Right. Because cut is on. Let's try that one more time. Embarrassing. Here we go. Ha! So now I've created this reverb pad, and then I can unfreeze it. Super fun effect. Map this to a macro, map this to a button. On, off. So now I can, this is mapped here. So now I can crank this, send a little bit to the reverb, and then I can freeze. Beautiful, right? We're making music. But you get the idea. that's how you create an effects send. 60 seconds. Insane. You can do the same with delay. If you want to create a quick little delay throw, grab a filter delay or any delay you choose, really. Drag it on there. Probably don't want the ping pong feature, so you just keep it basic. Probably make it about here. Set it to a time. Let's go something like this. Wet signal, 0, and then turn down the dry. And same fader. Hey! Hey, 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 hey. Woo! Turn it down, and you can talk beneath the effects send. You can create loops this way, which is kind of fun. Hey, 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 and then talk underneath. I mean, obviously, I'm not really in performance mode here, so don't be judging. But there you go. That's the quickest and simplest way to set up an effects send within a track. And the reason I don't like using sends is because if you're working with one delay but multiple tracks and you're sending them all to the same delay, that can be really complex for a sound guy to, especially if, you know, if this is for your band or something and they've never heard you before and they're like, I have this delay send that I'm supposed to mix. Like, this way you can just handle the mixing. So this is kind of how I approach it in my live sets with my band. Of course, correct me if I'm wrong. If there's a better way, let me know. There probably is. So anyways, that's that. Creating a delay send within a track in Ableton for live performance. Let me know if you have any questions.